there will be ewes here that won't come up in condition, and I suppose in the past they probably would have been reluctant to get rid of them, but last year anything that wasn't condition score above, I think it was 2.75, I think nearly 3, there was only one or two ewes that were under 2.75, but there was 5 ewes in total that were under 3, and I just culled them out of it before tipping, because I suppose there was the beauty of having enough replacements. I was able to do that, you know.
Hello, I'm Kieran Lynch and welcome to OviCast, the Teagasc Sheep podcast. Each episode will bring you the latest insights, advice and technical updates for the sheep industry. Now, in this week's episode, we catch up with Shane Moore, who's a Bella Farm participant in County Roscommon. Shane runs a mixed beef and sheep enterprise, and he shares insights on how the season has progressed so far, including some of the challenges with joint ill at lambing and how the rebound in lamb performance has happened, as well as his current drafting. We also discuss how Shane selects his replacements and identifies problem ewes for culling, his approach to post-weaning lamb management, run and finishing groups, and the focus on improving ewe condition. We also discuss Shane's approach to grazing this season and his overall grassland management on the farm. Good having you back on with me. It's been a while since we had you on the podcast. We've certainly been out to your farm enough of times for open days and webinars on various things, but I think it could be nearly 2 years since I had you on this one. And the last time we were chatting to you, there was some big system changes going on. So maybe for the benefit of our listeners, will you give me a little bit of background to your farming system?
Yeah, so Kieran, thanks for having me on. So I'm farming here outside the Teagasc in Roscommon. It's sheep and cattle flock. I think the last time I was on, there was suckler cows. They were being going out of the farm and back to sheep and dry stock more so. So I'm lambing around 200 ewes, mature ewes, and killing all the lambs. Most lambs going direct slaughter from the farm.
Shane, you're running on a fragmented farm, like just roughly the layout of that system.
Yeah, so they're in three separate blocks, mainly, Kieran, with a fourth block that's kind of just usually used for silage. So the ewes and lambs are turned out into each block after lambing into the 1, 2 and 3 blocks, and they're on a set stock there from turnout to weaning on them blocks.
Look, typical enough for the area, Shane, but as you said, look, it throws up its challenges in terms of managing and that afterwards, and you have to stock them accordingly.
Yeah, no, I don't. That's the plan, to try and keep them there until weaning and not have to move them up and down the road in a trailer.
Yeah, no, it was easy done, so it's not. Look, if we kind of talk a little bit about how things have gone this year, probably started off fairly well. Like, ewes were in good condition last year. You had a good scan.
Yeah, so ewes were in great condition. Kieran went into the shed last winter, and I had a good scan. Everything went very well right up until the point of lambing. The ewes were in good condition, and silage was good, and no major issues in the shed up to lambing.
Well set up, and I'd say most of us will agree it was probably one of the easier years lambing. Didn't quite go to plan for yourself.
No, it didn't just quite go to plan. No, it as you said, it was a perfect start, but it just kind of got dose of joint ill in, and it just kind of took over, and it basically ran riot through the flock, I suppose is the only way of putting it. It went through them completely.
I suppose, like, to be fair, for a bit of context around it, like, nutrition would have been good, hygiene was good with you, not something you'd have experienced a lot of before. Everyone, I suppose, has the 1 or 2 cases, but you really got hit hard with this year.
Yeah, no, I never would have had much of an issue here. Maybe 1, 2 or 3 lambs towards the end of the lamb with joint ill, that'll be it. But it was this year, I think it was about 4, maybe 5 days into lambing, and I was walking up across the fields to my own house one evening, and I seen a couple of lambs starting to go lame, and I kind of thought it was scald. And the following morning, then there was a couple more the same way, and by that evening there was 8 or 10 lambs down, and I basically filled Ivor Williams' trailer. I went to the vet with them the following morning, so it escalated from there to about injecting about 90 lambs a day for a full week solid, trying to keep on top of it.
No, look, and it's very challenging, and one of the really difficult things at any period like that, it's a frustrating thing to look at and to say, well, am I going to get out of this? The far side of it, I suppose, look, there was good support there from your local vets in terms of correct diagnosis and treatment as well, but it took a hell of a lot of effort and a cost as well to seeing the far side of that.
Yeah, no, in fairness to vets, no, they were very helpful. There were multiple visits, and I was into them, and they were out as well. They were very good, and also Seamus Fagan there from the regional veterinary lab in Athlone was out to me as well, and he was very helpful as well. But yeah, high cost, but look, we got through it eventually. It just took stick at it basically is all you could do. Keep at them, and that was it.
And I think in fairness to you, you did actually get on top of it, so you did, because like we chatted a little bit about your lamb performances. You like that was a very difficult start to it. Your lamb performance actually has been quite good this year, though, even despite that big setback.
Yeah, so I kind of was, I was expecting the lambs would have been a bit more under pressure this year, Kieran. And I was kind of very pleasantly surprised, I suppose, at 7 week weights. They were more or less sitting where they were last year, very close to it after what was a terrible start. Now, albeit the weather was very good and very favourable, I suppose if the weather had gone against me, it could have got an awful lot worse, but it didn't. So no, up to 7 weeks, the lambs, I was very happy, and then from 7 weeks on, they just seemed to power on. That was usually I'd have a lull there from 7 weeks to weaning, but they drove on this year from 7 weeks to weaning. So
I think like I remember looking back at your growth rates or chatting to you about it before. You were doing kind of in the region of 265, 270 grams a day from birth to weaning.
yeah, no, that's what I was doing from birth to weaning. So I was very happy with that. Now, in fairness.
And like that was a surprising thing. Like despite that setback, you were still ahead of last year when it came to weaning.
Yeah, so the lambs were well ahead last year when it came to weaning. So was maybe the only thing that kind of did change was I kind of put a bit more of an effort onto. I wasn't pushing the lambs as hard, grazing no paddocks. I suppose was, I upped the residual on the paddocks, and that probably tied into it as well. That they did thrive on very well,
But I suppose like look the proof of that, and we'll come back a wee bit on the grassland in a moment. But in terms of drafting, Shane, like we're sitting, I'm chatting to you just at the end of July. In terms of getting lamb sales going this year, where are you at the moment drafting wise?
Yeah, so there's 3 drafts gone there at the minute, and there'll be another draft going there next week out of it. There was once I weaned the lambs there was a finishing group set up. So Anton was 37 kilos up. We're put into the finishing group. They're getting a half a kilo meal a day. So there was 2 weeks ago there was a lot of lambs thereabouts on the weight, but maybe not just overly fleshed because they're only 2 weeks after weaning. So I'd be expecting there should be another good pull of lambs there next week.
And I suppose that's maybe one big difference by comparison to last year. You're drafting, probably your overall drafting percentage is higher, but there's a regular draft of lambs coming now as well.
Yeah, so I'm drafting every 2 weeks here, whereas this time last year it was kind of gone. Maybe it went out to 3 weeks there after weaning, and it was just they weren't just driving on that for that period.
Look, I suppose you mentioned the finishing group there, like the set criteria for getting into it, but it does help as well, Shane. Like you're limiting the amount of feed you're going in, but you're not blanket feeding everything. I assume the ones not in that group are just being ran on at grass.
Yeah, so no, it's just the feeding group that's on the half a kilo meal. The rest of them are just on good quality grass, being moved around, and the ewes following behind them.
Okay, so just once a day feeding, Shane.
Yeah, once a day. Yeah, in Teagasc. Yeah.
And look, we're just chatting there about drafting. You mentioned something else important there. Like I know, and look, you can chat about. You probably upped your drafting weight since weaning a nice bit, but you're also mentioning about putting your hand on like the importance of that for you. I'm assuming you're trying to hit full carcass weight every time.
Yeah, I'm trying to get them into full much on the carcass weight as I can, try and get them up fairly high. I don't like seeing these two fat score twos going back on the kill sheet. Just put on the bit extra weight on them, get them up that bit with a bit more flesh on them. So
you're aiming at what 21 kilos at the moment.
Yeah, 21 kilos there at the moment. Yeah, kilos. Yeah, when weighing them there, to put your hand in the back of them is very important. I think it just gives you exactly what you have when you feel them down the back. They're not underfleshed,
There's going to be that wee bit of variation in lambs from now on anyway. So I suppose you're just checking for that and trying to be a bit more consistent in what you're pulling.
Yeah, trying to keep them all fairly consistent on the condition as well as the weight,
So Shane, that finishing group, you're going to keep adding to that as the rest of the year goes on, or are you going to reach a point where you're saying just going to feed everything now?
No, so at the moment, Kieran, it's only ram lambs that are in that feeding group. They're just the ram lambs, and that's the way I normally keep going. As I kill out of the feeding group, I pull the same amount of lambs I kill into the finishing group, and out of they start getting the meal then, and it kind of stays around that kind of 60 to 70 lambs in the feeding group, kind of most of the year kind of thing, until it starts to drop off in numbers towards the end.
It leaves it a bit of an easier group as well for managing, just for drafting and for handling for that kind of work.
Yeah, so it's a handy bunch to run in, Kieran, and just pull the lambs every 2 weeks, and then I'm cobalting my lambs as well every 2 weeks. So I kind of do bring in the smaller lambs then on the home block here and run them in and pull out the heavier lambs out of that and put them into the feeding group when I'm killing lambs out of it.
Shane, I suppose, look, we're heading into August. In terms of worm control, what are you doing there? Are you sampling regularly?
Yeah, so we're sampling every 2 weeks, worm counts since the first of June. There, we're doing worm counts every second week, at the moment. So yeah, dosing it accordingly to the worm counts coming back.
And Shane, look, I suppose you have a lot of sheep on the farm. In terms of checking product efficacy, what are you doing about that at the moment?
Yeah, so I suppose, Kieran, there's been a few in the last year or two kind of maybe signs of slight issues in some of the worm doses, maybe not just working fully. So we're doing a full drench test there at the moment on the lambs, on all four products. So that's ongoing at the minute. So
Okay. You're going the full hog on it.
yeah, no, the whole lot has been done now.
Yeah, look,
So
it's
whether
all
it's
in
good or
terms of,
bad news at the end of it, we don't know. But sure, we'll wait and see.
well, at least you'll know at that point and you can manage
Yeah,
accordingly.
exactly. Yeah, nowhere to go. Yeah, yeah.
Shane, so look, one other thing we're talking about lambs there, in terms of your replace for new lambs, have you them picked out yet, or when are you going to split them off as a group?
Yeah, so I suppose I think last week there, Kieran and I had them in, and I kind of there's 55 to 60 lambs that are involved in the drench test there at the moment, so they kind of have to stay on the home block until that's fully completed. But I went through them there, and I just because I was kind of getting tight on the home block last week here, so I drafted off 50, 52 ewe lambs, I think, and they're moved away to the outer one of the out blocks now. They'll probably be in the ones I'll pick, but they're not the finished pick. We'll say there's still some of them left here in the home block that have to come out of it yet, like.
And Shane, like of them 50, how did you go about selecting them out?
Yeah, so I suppose, Kieran, as part of the Better Farm program there, we're tagging all lambs at birth, as you know, and it's we do. I put colour discs in the twins and red in the twins and green in the triplets. When they're born, when I'm tagging the lambs, as long as I have no issues with the ewes, they go into that. They get a tag in the rear going out. So when I'm picking my ewe lambs, I'll pick from them, and I also know then what rams the ewes went to last year. So I'd be picking, I suppose it's kind of this time last year, the ewes that were going to go to the rams. I wanted to read the replacements off. Like,
It's nearly 12 months in progress, so it is. But like you mentioned something else, and I think it's an important thing. That's not your final group, so you have your 50 odd picked out at the moment. You're going to whittle that down a little bit more. Maybe just highlights the importance of pulling enough of them as well.
yeah, so I suppose, Kieran, I'd probably be keeping somewhere around the 50 mark. But there's probably another 20 ewe lambs there at the moment in the home block that are involved or that would be involved in the drench test reduction there. So they will go in with the ewe lambs now when that's finished this week. They'll go to with the ewe lambs, and I suppose then I'll kind of pick them any problems, any lameness, or if any sort of a problem at all in the ewe lambs, they'll be culled out of that group at the moment. That kind of way they'll go back into the normal group.
Well, you're giving yourself a wee bit of choice anyway.
Yeah.
If we talk then maybe about the mammies of them, what's happened with the ewe flock, Shane, maybe since weaning? Have you gone through the culls of that yet, or what's the plan with them?
Yeah, so I suppose I would have been tagging culls, Kieran, last year at Lamon or throughout the year. Any problems that arose, they got a cull tag in their ear. So at weaning, them culls were pulled off when I was weaning the lambs. They were pulled off separate. Now there was 12 of them that were right good strong ewes. They were just they were given maybe 4 or 5 days to dry up a bit, and they were brought straight to the market. They were sold. The lesser culls then are just being ran there at the moment, in a group on their own, and they'll be sent to the market in the coming weeks, I suppose. And the ewes then were gone through. I went through the ewes there last Sunday week, and I split them just very simple split, Kieran. I suppose that I picked out the best of the ewes that are here in the home block coming after the lambs, cleaning out the paddocks, and I think the 74 or 5 ewes in that bunch there. And then there's another bunch of ewes down the road in Out Farm. On one of the blocks, there's about 120 or 25 ewes there with the hoggets. They're being ran on aftergrass, kind of. It's maybe strongish aftergrass, I suppose, with good growth. It kind of got a bit ahead of it, so they're going in eating that there now. So they won't be pushed too hard on it. I'll probably only push them down maybe 5, 6 centimeters, and maybe go in them with the mower and top it off or something like that.
You're giving them a chance just to pull up that bit of condition early on.
Yeah, no, I'm a firm believer. You need to start early with them BOs that are under condition. I'll probably go through them again the next couple of weeks, and I'll probably pull off the real tenor BOs, and they'll be put with the old lambs, given nearly the best grass other than the lambs, the feeding group of lambs, would say.
I suppose, Shane, that just gives a bit better of a chance prior to tipping.
Yeah, so I suppose that gives them a chance, but there will be always here that won't come up in condition, and I suppose in the past they probably would have been reluctant to get rid of them, but last year I suppose anything that wasn't condition score above, I think it was 2.75, I think nearly three. There was only one or two yaws that were under 2.75, but there was five yaws in total that were under three, and I just culled them out of it before tipping because I just thought, I suppose there was a beauty of having enough replacements. I was able to do that.
Look, you don't need any more passengers. I suppose they're always the ones that's going to cause us that extra bit of headaches.
Yeah, there'll be a lot of work going into them for the year afterwards. So.
Look, it'd be remiss of me. You mentioned grassland a few times there. It'd be remiss of me not to have a bit of a chat to you about what way you run it. I suppose, Shane, maybe just overall, how has it been grass-wise this year by comparison to last year?
Oh, sure. I suppose Kieran has been a great year for grass. It's well ahead. It's really booming out of the ground. I did get tight there, I suppose, in June for maybe a week or 10 days. I just did come under a bit of pressure. It was in May. I think it was actually the middle of May. It happened. I just after taking out the first coat of silage and kind of got tight on grass. But other than that, then it has been just rocketing ever since. I suppose growth rates there for the last 3 or 4 weeks have kind of been anywhere from 65 to 90. I think it was the last 3 or 4 weeks.
I suppose, Shane, you had a lot more surplus probably this year than last year as well.
Yeah, Kieran I think last year there was only 10 bales taken off in surplus there last year. I think it's somewhere around 70 bales nearly taken off in surplus. And I actually thought I was finished taking surplus, but I actually knocked another 4 acres there this evening in surplus bales. It's just grass is really taken off. Rather than trying to walk it into the ground and try and push stock to eat it, I'm taking them out there as bales. So
I think to be fair, it's night and day between this year and last year.
Oh yeah, there's no comparison really, I suppose, in grass growth.
Just in terms of that grazing system, like you mentioned about residuals, about not pushing them as hard, just maybe give our listeners a little bit of a kind of snapshot. How do you go about grassland management? What are a couple of key things to you, and maybe talk to me a little bit about that paddock setup?
Yeah, so I suppose, Kieran, it's a rotational grazing they're on here on all the blocks, I suppose. I suppose it was yourself and Damien were out to me last year, and I suppose you kind of just said maybe I was pushing them slightly hard on the paddocks and the graze outs. And when I suppose look back on that, I was pushing them that bit tighter, thinking I needed to have this lovely swart of grass coming back after them. So this year, I suppose on the home block here, the numbers of ewes stayed the same, but instead of going into 1 acre paddocks for 3 days, they were going into 2 acre blocks for somewhere around 5, 6 days. So I suppose that was one of the things I kind of thought this year, that maybe the ewes and lambs mightn't have been under pressure as much. Now, when I say under pressure, I was still only grazing them down there to 5, 6 centimeters. I wasn't going hard on them. So I suppose they were under pressure for 1 and 6 this year, whereas last year they might have been under pressure for 2 and 6, if that makes sense.
Yeah. So Shane, just to maybe clarify, like on the first rotation and even the second rotation, you're still cleaning that pasture out to 4 centimeters or as close to it as you can get. Isn't that kind of final, the third rotation or that one leading in the weaning, that's where you're slacking off a little bit with that residual height, I assume?
Yeah, so that's right, Kieran. It's the last rotation, the final rotation coming up to weaning. I was slackening off and how pushing the ewes in the paddocks. I suppose I had a lot of silage taken out at that time as well, Kieran. So I kind of was happy enough that I didn't really need to be pushing them as hard.
Look, you mentioned about the paddock size. Last year it was the 1 acre. This year it's the 2. And I suppose this might be contrary to something that we often talk about where we're trying to reduce paddock size. But you have a fairly decent sized grazing group in Shane. What do you think was the challenge with A, going that little bit tighter, and B, maybe that smaller paddock and spending longer, maybe than you should in some cases.
Yeah, so I suppose, Kieran, when I kind of sat down and I looked at it, I suppose, I was grazing them in the same 2 acre paddock, but they'd have been there for 6 days last year, where they'd be under pressure maybe for two of them 6 days, whereas this year they were coming out of the 2 acre paddock kind of the same time frame, but maybe not under as much pressure. I wouldn't be pushing the grazing just as tight, so they were only under pressure maybe one day in six instead of two in 2 and 6, like So I suppose that was a big thing this year. I suppose I kind of did see the benefit of it,
The fact that you work on part time, maybe instead of them getting shifted in the morning, it might have been that evening before they got moved. Less of a challenge, maybe in that 2 acre field for you as well.
Yeah, I suppose, Kieran, really, I suppose in 1 acre paddocks, there was probably times last year they should have been moved maybe around, we could say, lunchtime, and it might be late on in the evening before I'm home from work and they were moved, that kind of way. So
Mm.
they were being pushed that bit too tight on the paddocks, whereas that didn't really happen this year as well. I suppose when I seen them if I went out doing the herding in the morning, and I was kind of like, they might, they're coming under a bit of pressure now. Maybe I'll chance them till this evening. I wasn't doing that this year. I was letting them on. I wasn't taking that
And look,
extra.
all this might seem very little things, but I suppose if you add all these little things up together, it can start having an impact. I suppose if you took that change alone and the fact that there was extra aftergrass coming in, that did kind of help drive on that lamb performance issue.
Yeah, no, definitely, it definitely did. It definitely helped to drive on lamb performance, 100%. Yeah.
If we're just talking about that, like post-weaning, how tight are you pushing them lambs? What way are you working that clean out group of ewes? Are they following them in every paddock or are they getting their own separate paddock as well?
Whichever really comes first, Kieran, whether the lambs of the paddocks graze down to 6 centimeters, um, or if the O's are gone that bit tight, they've hit four and the lambs are still only on maybe 7, 8 centimeters in the paddock. I let the lambs on and let the O's into the paddock behind, that sort of way. So that's kind of the way the lambs are getting the real top piece of grass off it, at the moment.
So you're really just keeping them shoved on as much as you can.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I suppose getting
Um,
cheap gain on them.
Look, I suppose we talked a little bit about paddocks. We've talked about other bits with you. In terms of reseeding, have you done any this year, I suppose, with extra grass grow to give you maybe that option to do it?
Yeah, so I suppose the extra grass, the lot of silage taken out early. I had more than enough silage for the year as it is. I dropped out 4 acres there. Suppose coming on to a month ago now, so it's a bit of ground that on an out farm is probably on one side. It's a more silage farm than grazing. And it was just dropped out, and it's a very shallow soil, so there's rock. So it was just direct drilled, grass seed spread off and direct drilled. So
Okay.
grass seed and clover mix.
That's a month ago now, Shane. So that's kind of coming up to the post-emergent stage now, is it?
Yeah, so the post emergence gearing was supposed to go on this evening or tomorrow. I think he's spraying it there. So
And like your plan for that, that's going to be grazed out by lambs and similar for the rest of the year.
yeah, the lambs will be going on to that now. There's four. It's an 8 acre block of ground, and there's half it done. So there's half the grass and the top half it. So the lambs, the small store lambs will probably be going out to that now when time comes to graze it.
Look, I suppose we kind of covered a good bit of what's happening on the farm with you at the moment. And I suppose, look, the season's progressing. Probably your ram team is probably the one other thing you've looked. I know you had a breeding event on the farm last week, Chris. So kind of looking at this, that's probably the next thing you need to consider.
Yeah, so I suppose it's that time of the year again. I suppose I don't really buy in any stock on the farm. So the big a ram or two purchased every year. That's all that's purchased in this time of the year. So I do like to get them in fairly early if I can, Kieran, get them settled in and get them acclimatized to the farm before tipping. I try and buy them definitely there in August and the early half of August if I can at all.
So there's a couple probably on the list from last year. I suppose you've probably gone through your rams already.
Yeah, so I suppose that was one of the benefits of having the breeding event on the farm there last week. Went through the rams and had a good look at the rams. So there's one or two rams there probably have to be replaced now, I'd say, yeah.
You've been busy this year from a challenging start. I suppose it shows, and it's probably an important thing too, Shane, that you can kind of get bogged down in the middle of like what happened to you with the giant hill, but you can turn that corner. And to be fair to you, with that extra effort and the bit of help, you kind of did turn that corner and come out of it and got things back on track again.
Yeah, I suppose, Kieran, when you're in the middle of it, it's very hard to see the sunny days coming in May and June. You know, it was they seemed a very long way off here back on the 20th of March, and the ewes lambing and a lot of issues with joint ill. But look, I got through it, and I had a young lad help me out there this year at lambing, and he was a great help. In fairness, he was here at all hours of the morning injecting lambs with me before I was going to work. So I have to thank him. And I suppose the one thing at the very start of it, when it did kick off, talking to Seamus Fagan one day, and he said, "Look, he said the problem is, he said, the biggest problem with joint ill, he says, is you'll catch the lamb day one, you'll catch the lamb day two, day three, you might catch him day four. Then he's going to be harder caught." And he said day four, day five, and day six are really the important days that the lambs need to be hit with the antibiotic when to fully kill the infection, I suppose. So that was one thing, I suppose, with such a high level of it, I kind of had to take that on board. So we set up basically the handling unit in the corner of the field, and we ran the ewes in, give them a small bit of meal and trocks, and caught every lamb and injected them, put a mark on the lamb. I suppose that was the one thing I think that did get me through it, was I was very, very persistent in making sure every lamb got it for the 6 days, the injection, even when they were looking fine.
Look, I think it's important, and you touched on a couple of things. You got that bit of advice at the beginning, and you stuck to the plan that they give you. And to be fair, Shane, it's probably a lesson there for any of us. Like, we're all going to hit a problem at some stage. It's not being afraid to ask for that bit of help and the bit of advice, and then follow that plan the whole way through it.
Yeah, no, that's definitely, Kieran. Yeah, no, it's great to have the advice there. I suppose I have a lot to be thankful for, and I suppose then these things go on, and you don't really, sometimes you kind of lie under them and you don't want to tell anyone what's going on. I suppose that kind of way, and I suppose that's the worst thing you could possibly do in that situation,
For every good news story, there can be a bad one. But look, it's great to see that turnaround. And look, I think, to be fair, Shane, anyone who's been on the farm knows the system you're running. It's well set up, it's well run, and I think it's a credit to you. So thanks very much for coming back on with me again for yet another episode of it. But it was good chatting to you.
Thanks very much.
We'll leave it there for this week's episode. I'd like to thank Shane again for coming on with us, discussing how this year has gone from, as well as giving us insights on how he manages the flock. That's it for me. For updates on our sheep programme, keep an eye on our Twitter page at Teagasc Sheep. I'm Kieran Lynch. Thanks for joining us. Don't forget to subscribe and follow us for more episodes.